Play ball.
How you doing, baseball fans? And welcome to another edition of the Brushback with JP Ricciardi. We got a great response from our last episode with Buster Only, and now we're ready to dive right into this first week of the baseball season. So say hello to the baseball lifer, 43 years in the game as a GM and senior front office executive for several teams during his career, JP Ricciardi. How you doing, JP?
I'm good, John. How you doing?
Doing good. It was a week filled with baseball from opening day on, and some teams did great, other teams did not. So it was a pretty interesting first weekend of the season.
Well, it's early, John. I know you're a little crushed about your Mets, but it's,
yeah, we'll get into them.
It's early. You sound like a typical Met fan. You've already got the grave dug and you got the dirt going on, but a lot of games left, John. Hang in there, buddy.
Yeah, panic city for sure on the on the Mets front. We get, because we're so used to getting our hearts just stomped on, and we just never, we can never have nice things. Let's put it that way.
I think you'll be okay. Hang in there.
Yeah, it is very early, as they say. Baseball season is now in full swing. Opening weekend come and gone, and it's time for this opening segment, which each and every week we're going to call JP's Hot Takes. And JP, we really got to start off with the New York Yankees. With the sweep of their rivals, the Houston Astros in Houston. 4 straight wins. The Yankees led now, it seems, by their new alpha dog, Juan Soto. They look like a team that has gotten a whole new energy and a whole new look, and that's Soto. But I think the energy is something that we've not seen in the Bronx for some time now.
Well, I don't know if you remember, but I told you, Soto's going to have a big year, and I strongly believe that. I think the ballpark's fit for him. I think the city's fit for him. He's another guy that's played a long time in the big league, so he's not going to be fazed by playing in New York. I think he's going to really thrive in it, and I think the fact that the Yankees, out of all the teams in baseball, the one team I thought that needed to get off to a good start was the Yankees, because the Garrett Cole setback is a big deflator for them. And for them to come out and play the way they played, that's going to send confidence up those guys' spine. I think they're going to reap the benefits of feeling good about that. And I don't think anybody could have made a bigger statement than the Yankees. To go into Houston, a team that's going to be a World Series contender, and to come away with 4 wins and to watch Soto do it in so many different ways, offensively, defensively, it takes the pressure off Judge, it takes the pressure off Stanton, and I really think that was a little bit of a shot across the bow for Major League Baseball that, hey, we're not dead yet, and if they can hang on till Cole comes back, if he comes back, that's going to be a big plus for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And Soto, like you said, he's built for New York. He's made for New York. He's got the personality. He's got the charisma. And he battled in every single at-bat, it seemed, over the weekend. As you said, sense of the strike zone, clutch hitting, defense, everything on display. He was 9 for 17 in the series, hitting .529. He had a double, home run, 4 RBIs, 3 walks, game-winning hit in the last game, and the presence was there for the Yankees. They go 4-0 for the first time since 2003, the 12th time in their history they've done that. So, as you said, it looks good for the Yankees so far.
Yeah, it takes a lot of pressure off them. I'm sure they went in there thinking, let's come out of here with a split, but to walk away with 4 games, and I know it's early, but sometimes some things done early set the tempo for the season. I didn't anticipate the Yankees going in there and winning 4, but for them to do that and this guy to rise to the occasion, it's gonna be exciting in New York.
It is, at least on the Bronx side, but you get over to Queens, not so good over there. Let's take a look at the other side. Look at the Mets. They were swept by the Milwaukee Brewers, the former team of new president of baseball operations, David Stearns. They had kind of a lifeless weekend. The bats in the opening game and the closing game were kind of silent, with the exception of Francisco Alvarez. Pete Alonso hit a nice shot. But the weekend was dominated by the former Philadelphia Philly, who gave the Mets problems when he was a Philly throughout his career, Rhys Hoskins. And he's kind of become public enemy number one over the course of the weekend in New York. It started with a slide into second base in the opening series. He went right into Jeff McNeil. He spiked him and took him out of the play. McNeil got up, started yelling at him. Benches cleared, bullpens emptied. Nothing happened. Everyone was waiting for McNeil to say, all right, go at it. If you're that angry, go at it. But that never happened. Then what happens in the following game, Hoskins gets up. He hits a home run. He's just dominating the Mets. And then in the eighth inning, the Mets' new reliever, Johan Ramirez, threw at him and missed him. It was reminiscent of what happened in 2015. New manager Carlos Mendoza walks out, talks to the umpire. They eject Ramirez. And I'm like, all right, show something here. So anyway, Hoskins crushes the Mets. The next day for the closing game of the series, Mendoza's suspended for one game. He takes it automatically. Our buddy Gibby goes in there and manages the team, but the Mets get swept. And I just want to get your take. I want to get JP's take on what happened with the New York Mets this weekend.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I thought McNeil overreacted on the play. If you watch the play closely, he doesn't have a clean transfer on the double play. He bobbles the transfer, so that allows Hoskins to get closer to him. And, Hoskins slides aggressive, but within the rules because he can hold on to the bag. So I think it's more of a combination of McNeil not getting out of the way as it is Hoskins sliding aggressive. That's point number one. Point number two, if Jeff McNeil is that upset, why did he wait so long as Hoskins got away from the play, he started chirping.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're that upset, you could have took care of matters right there, then and there, and you didn't. I thought Hoskins handled it great. He got up, he ran off the field, and then he started, once McNeil was coming after him. But I thought the Mets totally overreacted. I thought trying to throw behind a guy in the eighth inning, the time already passed when you should have done that, or you should have saved it for the first at-bat for the next game and hit the guy in the hip or hit the guy in the back. But I thought the timing of how they retaliated was poorly done. I didn't understand how the pitcher didn't get a warning. But all that being said, I thought the Mets did not handle the situation well. I didn't think McNeil handled the situation well. And I thought Hoskins handled it better than all of them and came out looking better.
Well, he certainly decimated them. And, he reacted to McNeil by just rubbing his eyes and make believe he was crying. So he was really just kind of making fun of McNeil. And then with Ramirez getting thrown out without the warning and Mendoza coming out and not, first impressions in New York are very important, especially with a new skipper. And this was reminiscent of what happened years ago when Terry Collins and the ass in the jackpot and all that. It was almost like deja vu in a lot of ways. But do you think it should have been handled differently, maybe by the skipper to go out there and show a little bit more cogliones, as they say in Italian, and Collins and other skippers would have handled it a lot differently, especially when there was no warning given to the pitcher.
Well, I don't know Mendoza, and I don't know what his personality is. I don't know if he's a really laid-back guy. I don't know, just that's the persona he wants to put out there. But I thought in general the Mets played very flat. I watched a couple of those games. I thought Severino, his velocity looked good. I thought his slider was very flat. He was having a hard time locating that. I think that's a couple of balls that he got beat on with flat sliders for home runs. And look at, you can't take anything away from the Brewers. The Brewers got a good young club. They got a lot of young players that are going to put pressure on you. They defend really well. They run the bases well. They've got good offense. So once again, I'm not going to make a big deal out of 3 or 4 games into the season. I just thought the Mets looked flat. And when you don't hit, you always look flat. So you could take that to the bank. If you do not produce offensively, I don't care what team you are, you will always look flat. There's no action on the bases. So, the Mets will bounce back and turn around. I don't see the Mets being a great club. I see them at best being 500. I think, I hate to crush your dreams here, John, but I think they just don't have enough on the mound. It's flat. And their lineup is good, but it's not great. I think at best they're a 500 team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any high hopes, and I didn't really go into the season with the Mets. I didn't have any high expectations. You try to be competitive, you sneak into the playoffs, and anything happens in October. But off to a bad start. But another team we watch closely are the Blue Jays, obviously. You have such that rich history with them, and they had a decent weekend. They split the series with Tampa, and the highlight, I thought, they scored a lot of runs. They scored 20 runs over 4 games. But the guy that stood out to me was somebody that you said was going to make an impact, and that's Justin Turner. And he had an immediate presence. He's so smooth, and his presence is there, the home run, the hits. And it just looked like he was having fun, and the team was having fun playing with him.
Yeah, I think Turner, I said this earlier, at this stage of his career, he's become that lucky charm. He's a good player. He has professional at bats, but he has a lot of fun playing the game. And I think as an older player, or the adult in the room, so to speak, he's going to lighten it up there a little bit. He's going to make sure those guys have some fun. He's kind of been there and done that, so they can look at him and say, okay, this is a veteran player, can set this clubhouse with his presence. Not only the way he plays, but the way he handles himself and the way he treats his teammates. So I thought this was a great sign for the Blue Jays. And if he stays healthy, he's going to have a good year. He's going to keep this good impression on those young players, especially, Bichette and Guerrero. And Guerrero, hit a home run. And I think he's going to have a big year. So to come out of there on the road 2-2, it's a comfortable way to start.
It is, and Guerrero's home run was a monster shot. It was great to see that, and to just look at the Jays and say, they look good. They look good, and Gausman coming back, obviously, everyone was worried about that. He performed well. So the Blue Jays will be watching them closely as the season progresses. And a couple of surprises in the game right now. Pittsburgh Pirates, they start up 4-0 themselves, and this is the first time that the Pittsburgh Pirates have won 4 games in a row to open a season on the road since 1903. Are we seeing the beginning of maybe a more competitive Pittsburgh in that town that's dying for a winner?
Yeah, I think the Pirates have nowhere to go but up. They have a lot of good young players. They're still not going to be there yet. I still think those young players have to mature and they have to kind of gel together. And that's a lot to ask for all you young players to gel together at the same time. But they're definitely going in the right direction. And I think the young players, the enthusiasm, the energy they bring, I think it's something for the fans in Pittsburgh to tie into. They've got something to sell. And I think, once again, anytime you come out of a series 3-0, 4-0, whatever it is, there's no downside to that. So it's a good thing for the Pirates. They've got some good young players on the horizon coming. So I think you're going to see good things happening for that organization. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team this year, but they're getting these young players good experience. And like I said, there's no downside to winning. So a good start is a good start.
All right, let's go over to the West Coast. And another JP take that we have to bring up is Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who made his Dodger Stadium debut. And as you predicted here, he did quite well. 5 scoreless innings in the debut. And also, some really exciting baseball that the Dodgers played and getting hits from some of the guys that maybe were not, the star players like Muncy. And I know that you mentioned to me that you were really impressed by Betts as well. So give us your take on the Los Angeles Dodgers opening weekend in L.A.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by Yamamoto. The stuff's too good. He's going to be an elite pitcher. And flush the first run down the toilet, everything else going forward, I think, is going to be positive. But to me, the guy that I know people talk about him, but I don't know if we talk about him enough is Mookie Betts. This guy is a Gold Glove right fielder. You could take a guy that's a Gold Glove right fielder, and then now you could put him at shortstop at the major league level, and you don't miss a beat. And not only do you not miss a beat, he doesn't miss a beat, and it doesn't even affect him offensively. In my estimation, there's baseball players. He's an amazing baseball player, but he's the best athlete in baseball. You know how hard it is to play the infield at the major league level, and not only play it at the major league level, but come from the outfield to the infield. It's so, it's so much easier if you're an everyday player and you go to the outfield, but to come to the infield and then to play up the middle where the action happens, you're involved in double plays, you're involved in relaying the pitches to the outfielders. You're mostly the guy that they veer the defense off of, the metrics off of. I don't think Mookie Betts gets enough credit for being the best athlete in the game, in my opinion. It's amazing what he's doing.
Pretty incredible, for sure. And as you said, what an athlete he is. Finally, I want to get your take on what's going on in baseball with some gimmicks that a lot of teams are incorporating into celebrations. The Cleveland Guardians, over the weekend, they got a WWE title belt that was branded Guardians, and it was purchased by Tyler Breed, the pitcher, and it was a way, he said, to bring the team together. It went over well. Each player of the game gets the belt to wear for a day, and then they give it to the next guy the following day. I want to get your take on these types of gimmicks, whether it's a WWE belt or a home run jacket, a scepter, or whatever these guys are using in the different teams. Even the Giants, your former team, did something similar, as I believe they also used fog machines and sprayed fake money after wins. So what's your take on the gimmicks that are kind of becoming prominent with teams in Major League Baseball today?
I understand why they do it. I understand today's player is a lot more boisterous and outgoing. You see it in the NBA. You see it in the NFL. So I'm not surprised that it's taken a life of its own. And every team seems to find their little niche that they think is, tied into whatever they think the topic of the celebration should be. I'm not a fan of it. I'm old-fashioned. I think, staying humble is a good way to go. I still like Scotty Rowland hitting a home run, putting his head down and getting around the bases pretty quick and then shaking everybody's hand in the dugout. Humility comes before the fall. So I think the celebrations have gone overboard. But, I'm an older guy, so maybe I don't relate to it as much. I know the younger kids like it. And I guess the days of throwing at someone because they're showing you up and embarrassing you are over. And, the game's become a little soft in that area. We can't take anybody out at second base. You had mentioned the Hoskins slide. If people want to really see what taking out someone at second base is, pull up a YouTube clip of Hal McRae taking Willie Randolph out in the playoffs. He actually knocks him 15 feet behind second base and didn't get thrown out of the game. So I'm not a big fan of all the celebrations. I think a little bit of humility is a good thing, but I'm still amazed that when an NBA guy dunks who's 6'8", 6'9", the bench goes crazy like he cured cancer. Come on, you're 6'10". You're 6'10", and you're dunking, and people are getting excited. So anyway,
the days of Ray Fosse, Pete Rose knocking over Ray Fosse are long gone. And even when pitchers would get upset when there was a curtain call by a player, so we've come a long way, and in a different way. It's generational. I think the younger guys, it's more glitz. It's more.
Doesn't make it a bad thing, John. It doesn't make it a bad thing.
Gimmicks. It's a generational thing.
Yeah.
It's just evolution, I guess. Well, that's going to do it for the opening segment here. And now it's time for Batter Up with JP. This week on Batter Up with JP is a former player who played in the big leagues from 1997 to 2010 for 6 different teams, including the Detroit Tigers, Texas Rangers, Milwaukee Brewers, New York Mets, and, of course, the Toronto Blue Jays. He finished his career with a .291 career average, set the Blue Jays record for most hits in one game with 6 on May 1st, 2004. He's a native Long Islander, now the head coach of the Hoftra Pride on the island, who play in the Colonial Athletic Association. He's also a 2011 inductee in the Suffolk Sports Hall of Fame. He's a founding member of the Italian American Baseball Foundation, an organization dedicated to the future of Italian American baseball in the United States and Italy. And he's also an author of Heart and Hustle and a 2011 inductee, as I said, in that Hall of Fame on Long Island in Suffolk County. Let's bring on a fellow Paisan, Frank Catalanotto, to Batter Up with JP.
How you doing, guys?
Hey, Frank, how you doing?
Doing
Good.
great.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So what we always ask someone, or what I like to ask them when they first come on the show is, my dad played in the minor leagues, so baseball for us was something that we were introduced to at a very young age and fell in love with at a very young age. When did you get introduced to baseball, and when did you fall in love with baseball?
So I fell in love with baseball very young. I remember 3, 4, 5 years old. I couldn't wait for my dad to come home from work, and because we were going to go outside in the backyard and we were going to play catch. And that's I remember those times vividly. After catch, we were going to watch the Yankee game, and that's how I learned the game. I learned the game by watching baseball on TV, and listening to what my dad had to say, because my dad was a very good baseball player himself. I feel like kids nowadays, they don't watch baseball as much as we did back in the day, and the baseball IQs of some of these kids in college are very low. So that's how I fell in love with baseball, and I have vivid memories of times with my dad at a young age.
So I have a confession to make. Frank's one of my favorite players. I had a lot of players through my career, but one of my favorite players for a lot of reasons. One, he worked extremely hard. Two, you never heard a peep out of him. He did anything you asked him to do, always willing to do whatever it took to make the team better. And he's just one of those guys you never, ever came to the park saying, oh, is Catalanotto going to show up today? Just a consistent player and a consistent guy. But I do have to ask you a couple of interesting questions. You drafted in the 10th round out of high school, a Northeast kid. And I want to premise this by saying there's a lot of young kids who are going to listen to this podcast, whether high school kids, college kids, or even minor league players, that I think can get a lot out of this from you, Frank, because in your career, you've touched a lot of things. And to start off, I think the biggest thing is you drafted in the 10th round a Northeast kid, an everyday player. 10th round's a pretty good round, but it's not a high round. You got a chance to go to Seton Hall, I believe?
Yes.
Why did you sign? That's so unusual. You're really an outlier in the fact that you signed and you ended up being a big leaguer. But tell us why you signed.
Huge outlier. And my agent, or the guy that was advising me at the time, Alan Nero, he was telling me, go to Seton Hall. Go to Seton Hall. Don't sign. You're not ready. I was a small kid, maybe 155, 160 pounds. And I got lucky to get drafted. I really did. I mean, the scouts weren't coming down to watch me. They were coming down to watch a few other guys on my team. I must have impressed them a couple of times when they came down. And in hindsight, obviously things worked out. But if I was advising somebody in the same situation as me at this time, I would tell them to go to school. Shepard over at Seton Hall was telling me, no, Frank, you want to come here. We'll make you a second, third rounder. And you need to grow a little bit more. Now, schooling was very important to me and to my family. And it wasn't until the Detroit Tigers came in and said, all right, we'll give you X amount for school if you decide, baseball, you want to quit or something like that. And that kind of helped make my decision. My mom, and it took over a month for me to make my decision after I was drafted. every single night, my mom and dad and myself would sit down at the table and we'd go through the pros and cons of each. My mom was leaning towards, hey, you should go to school. And my dad was like, hey, you should go play pro ball. And I just felt like I needed to get into a minor league system, get with some good coaches, and be able to develop there. Of course, I had the scout telling me, hey, they need a second baseman because Lou Whitaker is he's going to be retiring soon. They want you at the big league level in a year from now. And I'm an 18-year-old kid thinking, oh, wow, I'm going to be playing in Detroit next to Alan Trammell next year, you know. So I'm lucky. I'm happy that it worked out. I got very lucky. But like you said, the typical path probably should have been me going to college and playing 3 years there.
And I don't think people who are listening to this podcast understand how hard it is for a high school kid, predominantly from the Northeast, a cold area, to not only get drafted, but to really make it. It's such an outlier. And when I look at Frank and I see there's not many everyday players from high school age that come out of the Northeast. A lot of college players, a lot of college pitchers, a lot of high school pitchers, but very few high school everyday players. We produce a ton of college everyday players, the Biggios, the Mo Vaughns, the Mike Bordicks, but very, very seldom does a high school kid sign and make it to the big league. So that's actually is amazing. And it's interesting for the young kids, I think, they're out there who are listening to understand. So you sign and you go to Bristol, Tennessee. Now, did Ray Bellino sign you?
No, it was Ramon Pena.
Oh, Ramon. Yeah, okay. So now you sign and you go to Bristol, right?
Yep.
And who's your first manager you run into in your first introduction to pro ball?
Ruben Amaro. Yep.
Small world, huh?
Yep.
And
yep.
What was Bristol, Tennessee like?
It was miserable. It was, you know, here I am, an 18-year-old kid. My mom and dad did everything for me, coming from Long Island, had a great life. I went there. It was in the middle of nowhere. The ballpark was terrible. You know, you never got a good bounce in the infield. I was a second baseman at the time. The showers were always, the drain was clogged, so we were showering in dirty water up to our shins. The bus trips are, I don't have to tell you, JP, the bus trips, 15-hour bus trips, buses with no air conditioning, braking. I was miserable. I showed up. I thought, like I told you, I waited a month to make my decision, and I was figuring, they can't wait till I get down there. They're probably waiting on me. And I showed up, and the second baseman that was there was their number 3 hitter. He was hitting 350. And I was like, oh, no, I'm in trouble here. And everyone was bigger, stronger, faster than me. This was the first time I was using a wood bat. And, I couldn't square the ball up. It was rough. I immediately realized like I might have made the wrong decision. I was getting phone calls from my good friends from high school saying how much fun they were having at college. And like I said, I thought, I probably made the wrong decision, and I wasn't playing. I got a few at bats here and there, and it wasn't as fun as I thought it would be.
And these are the stories I think young kids need to hear, because they think that they only see the finished product in the big leagues. They have no idea what the grind is like. I mean, I remember being in Charleston, South Carolina, same thing with the showers. And you're sitting there saying, what the hell? This is professional baseball? And like you said, you get there and there's a guy in front of you who's already a good player. And you realize, hey, I'm not the best player around. And you've got to actually do some things to catch somebody's eye. But you obviously go on and have, a lot of success in the minor leagues. And so I'll tell you my first introduction to Frank. I was an area scout for the A's at the time. And what my job was after the draft, I'd go on the field for about a month and help the rookie league club get started, or the Northwest League club, whichever one it was. And then I'd come back and I'd cover the Eastern League and the International League and the big leagues in a matter of like 3 months. So I was on the road all the time. So I see Frank playing in Double-A, and he really jumps out at me. The fact that he's got great balance on his swing, he's got great hand-eye coordination, excellent bat-to-ball skills. He's just consistently hitting the ball all over the place. I didn't think he was going to be a second baseman, but I knew he could hit. So one thing that was great with the A's was Billy Beane. They always gave me carte blanche to tell them who I liked and why I liked them. So I said, I would like to really Rule 5 Catalanotto. So they said, geez, we got a really good team here. I said, yeah, but if we can hide this kid at some point, we get a year away from this kid, he's going to be a good big league hitter. But it's a little bit of a long shot. So anyway, once again, for all the minor league guys that are out there, we Rule 5 Frank. And to explain the Rule 5 real quick, Reader's Digest version, if you're left protected on a certain roster, say a AA roster, you could be drafted by a team at the major league phase and you go right to the big leagues, but you have to make the team. So we Rule 5 Frank. And why don't you explain to everybody what it's like to be Rule 5, number one, what it's like to walk into that clubhouse that was loaded at the time, and what's going through your mind as a young player?
Yeah, I was excited, obviously, to get Rule 5, and looking forward to going to spring training with Oakland. And obviously, like you said, I had to stay there and make the team, or else I was sent back. But I was nervous as could be. I was a young kid. I remember playing second base, and I'm throwing the ball over to Mark McGwire, and this is Mark McGwire in his heyday, and I'm like, I got to throw it right to his chest. I don't want to make him move. I don't want to make him mad at me. So I was pressing a little bit. My first day of batting practice on the field, it was Jose Canseco, Mark McGwire, Jason Giambi, and me. These guys are launching balls out of the ballpark, and I'm barely hitting it out of the infield. So it was nerve-wracking, and it was. I felt like I was a little bit of a fish out of water. Obviously, not knowing the guys really that much on the team, coming into a clubhouse, like you said, with a bunch of superstars. So it was tough. I mean, I consider myself a tough kid, but I remember thinking, this is a situation where, I would show up to the ballpark every day and I would be nervous. And JP, I mean, you're not going to perform well when you're not confident and you're nervous. So unfortunately, it didn't work out. It was a good experience, but again, it was when I got sent back, and this is, people probably don't believe this, but it was getting close to the end of spring training, and there was a chance that I was going to make the team. No, I didn't know, yes or no. And then I got sent back to Detroit and was going to go to AAA, and I was so happy. I was relieved. I was like, okay, now I'm in a place that I'm comfortable, and now I can just go out and play baseball. And it was okay that I didn't make the big league team because now I was in a comfortable spot.
And I remember the guys telling me, Jay, we really like this kid. He's just not ready right now, and we don't have the right opportunity for him. But I was so glad we did it because of a couple of reasons. One, it gave us an opportunity to keep trying to add guys by being creative. And, it also identified to them that this was a guy that we should keep on our radar in case trades come up. But, deep in the back of my mind, I never thought I was going to be a GM.
Right.
But I also knew that I made a mental note, if Frank Catalanotto is ever available at some point, that's a guy that I want to make sure that he's on our list. So I think, like you said, it wasn't a matter of you being ready. I think sometimes we weren't ready for you. And but that experience seems like you turned it into a positive experience, which, only helps you as a player. And I think, like I said, young players that are listening to this, not everybody gets Rule 5, makes the team. There's an experience. And if you take away some of the positives, it can only help you in your career. So then, you move to the Tigers, you go back to the Tigers. So tell us about the day you get called up to the big leagues and what that was like.
Yeah, so I was at AAA Toledo, and Gene Roof called me in. It was the end of the '97 season, And obviously, a day that I had dreamed about. Gene called me in, told me I was going to meet the team in Atlanta the next day. And I was so thrilled. I couldn't wait. Now, this was before we had cell phones, or at least before I had a cell phone. I couldn't wait to get home to call my mom and dad and get them on the phone and tell them the good news. I'll never forget that phone call and never forget when Gene told me. So just an awesome moment.
Well, just getting to know your family a little bit, because when you're the GM, it's hard. You got to keep that distance between, But I knew your parents were so supportive of you. I used to see your father all the time in Yankee Stadium, and I got to tell you, one of the best parts of going to Yankee Stadium with Frank was hearing what's his name, the PA announcer.
Oh, Bob Shepard.
Bob Shepard pronounce now batting Frank Catalanotto. It was the best.
It was awesome. I got a recording of it. Somebody sent me a recording of it, so I every now and then I can listen to it. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's a keeper right there.
Yeah.
But so another area I want to talk about with you, because your whole career was about adjustment. Your whole career was about surviving, and you really were an outlier in so many ways, like we said earlier. Now you have to have a position change.
Yep.
So I told one of my good friends who's a pro scout with the Giants. I think you might have met Jimmy DeLoya, but he was with us with the Blue Jays, and he says you got to ask Frank how he dealt with the position change. So this question's for Jimmy DeLoya, a pro scout with the Giants now. He wanted to know how you handled the position change.
Yeah, so when I got to Detroit, Damian Easley had just signed a 5-year contract, and I got to Detroit as a second baseman. So I knew, I wasn't going to get much playing time. Tony Clark had gotten hurt, and they said to me, "Frank, can you play first base?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." So I learned how to play first base at the big league level on the fly because I wanted to get at bats. Then a week later, our third baseman got hurt, and they said, "Frank, can you play third base?" I said, "Yeah, of course." And again, I had to learn on the fly. So it was difficult to have to learn on the fly to play different positions, but I was willing to do it because I wanted to get in there and hit. And then when I got to Texas, Rusty Greer got hurt in right field early in the season, and I think it was Johnny Oates asked me if I could play the outfield, and I said sure. So I was willing to do it just to get, in the lineup. And then I kind of settled into left field for the rest of my career. Never a stellar fielder, but I felt like the fact that I could play a bunch of different positions was going to help me stay in the big leagues for longer, help me get playing time. I just wanted to, I knew if I got at bats that I could help the team and put up some good numbers. So I was fine with the change. I learned pretty quickly too, that if you're going to play second base at the big league level, you have to be elite. I remember early in my career, my rookie year, I went to turn a double play, and Tony Phillips was at first base coming in to slide. And he hit me and knocked me into left field. And I remember he came and picked me up. He slapped me on the butt, and he said, "Hey, Cat, in this league, you're going to have to get out of the way a little quicker." And I realized that maybe I wasn't quick enough turning the double play, at the big league level. And then so I think going out to the outfield was a good thing for me. It helped me stay in the league longer.
Well, Tony Phillips is one of those guys who played with his head on fire. Oh,
yes.
The great story, we were in Kansas City, and La Russa tells him, "Tony, I need you to pinch hit." And as he's going up, he turns to Tony and he says, "I'm going to get a hit here." He goes, "I want you to hit this ball like you live, hard." and that pretty much described Tony Phillips. But
oh yeah,
you played a really good left field, and it's not like you said. It's hard to adjust to a different position, but to do it at the major league level. And the one consistent for you was you were such a good hitter that your bat was always going to be in the lineup some way. And I would venture to guess that even being a little bit more comfortable defensively made you a little better hitter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know, being in the infield, like I said, I mean, those guys are elite. They're really good. So being out in the outfield, I felt like it was an easier position to play, and you didn't have to grind so much thinking about your defense. And yeah, there's no doubt that helped me with hitting.
So I love hitters like Frank because, like I stated earlier, contact guy, great plate discipline, keep their bat in the zone a long time, gap to gap power, going to give you a quality at bat. I have to ask you this because this is something that drives me nuts today. What do you think about the hitters today and the way they're being taught to hit?
I couldn't hate it anymore. I think it's awful. I'm happy that in college I'm able to kind of mold these guys the way that we did it back in the day. But to watch Major League Baseball right now, I totally disagree with what they're doing. All the swings that they're teaching just produce a lot of strikeouts. And, I know that when I played, if I struck out, I was embarrassed. I did not like walking back to that dugout without putting the ball in play. And it seems like now it's okay to strike out 150, 200 times. Small ball is gone. You rarely see bunting, hit and runs. So I don't like it. I think you have to get the bat in the zone quickly and keep it in the zone for as long as possible to give you the best chance to hit the baseball hard. And I understand that home runs sometimes produce 2-3 runs at a time, but to watch some of these guys swing and just swing and miss all the time, I don't like it.
We've gotten away from. Okay, John, you got a question?
Yeah, Frank, I listened to an interview you did, I think it was 2019, where you said you hated the changes that were happening at that time, where it was all about home runs and for pitchers all about strikeouts. So in your opinion, it's gotten worse since even 2019 when you did that interview.
It has. It has. And I keep saying to myself, it's going to come back. Eventually, it's going to come back to, putting the ball in play, putting pressure on the defense, hitting line drives. And we haven't seen it. But I still think at some point that we will see it, because I think that's, you look at the teams in the World Series, the teams in the playoffs, those are usually the good hitting teams, the teams that have the least amount of strikeouts. So I do think eventually it will come back. Maybe JP knows better than me. I don't know what, GMs are thinking and what organizations are thinking, if it's, throughout the minor league system that they're teaching them this or not. But hopefully it will, come back, to the way that I knew it growing up and how I played it.
I'd like to say it is, Frank, but I just don't see it, because I think there's less and less guys like you that have that philosophy of grinding out at bats, two-strike approach, not giving in, not settling for the strikeout, understanding there's a man on third with less than 2 outs. I don't care if I ground out the second. I'm going to play pepper up the middle, get the run in. And until we have more guys like that are teaching at the major league level or even the minor league level, and I talk to so many guys at the minor league level, and they're appalled at what's being taught. And I agree with you. I mean, the strikeouts, there's no entertainment in the game.
No.
So I'd like to say it's coming back, but I don't see it. But, you hit some pretty good lineups in your career. Give me some of your best lineups you hit with, and some of the guys that you really looked and said, wow, I can learn something from this guy.
Yeah, in Texas, we had some good lineups there with Rusty Greer, Pudge Rodriguez, Alex Rodriguez, Juan Gonzalez, Rafael Palmeiro, 1 year with Ken Caminiti. We had some really good lineups there. I mean, it was Andres Galarraga as well. There were a few years that we didn't have great pitching, but we'd score 10, 12 runs a night. Unfortunately, we gave up a bunch as well. But then in Toronto, I mean, playing with Vernon and Carlos, those were some pretty good years. I mean, those guys had some good years. I think maybe 03, 04, 05 around there. Really good hitters, and I was just happy to be able to be in a lineup with those guys.
I remember one year in Toronto, we scored 880 runs, and we were still 200 runs below the Yankees and the Red Sox.
Crazy.
I mean,
it was so difficult to compete with them.
I don't think people realize the grind of that division. Maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
It was disheartening because you knew we had a good team. You knew we were going to win 90 games or close to that. But you had the Red Sox and you had the Yankees that just wouldn't lose. It was such a good division. And you like playing against a good division. You don't want to be in a crap division, but it's tough going into Boston and going into Yankee Stadium and beating those guys all the time. So it was frustrating because we knew we had a good team, and like I said, I think we won about 90 games a few years. So some regrets because I feel like that team had a chance, and I don't know if things have changed. JP, you could tell me as far as who gets in now. Is it expanded to where maybe if it was now we would have been in, or
we would have been in a couple of times. We just
okay.
Now it's well, look at Diamondbacks. They won 83 or 84 games, and they got to the World Series. And we always said with Halladay and Lilly and Marco, I mean, if we got in, I take our chances having to face Roy 1, 5, and 7.
Exactly.
But how about some of your favorite parks to hit in?
For me, I loved the ballpark in Arlington. I also loved Fenway Park because I felt like it worked out good for me. Normally, if I hit a regular fly, if I hit a fly ball to left field, it was an out. But now I had a chance to hit that fly ball and hit it off of the Green Monster. So I liked it. I liked there, obviously, not being a home run hitter. It was good. If I pulled the ball down the line to right field, I had a chance to hit a home run there. And then, in the right center field gap, you had it was nice. You hit it there. You had a triple. And the fans in Boston, I think the fans in Boston are some of the best fans around. So I love playing there as well. And then let me see. Oh, Baltimore. I like Baltimore too. I know they've moved the fences back, and I haven't seen it since. But I remember I got a couple of cheap home runs to left center field there because that ballpark was great to hit in, and always manicured good. And the last one I would say I liked, although my numbers weren't great, I always liked playing in Anaheim. I mean, that field was always immaculate.
Yeah.
And the weather was always good.
How about you played in 4 or 5 different cities. What were some of your favorite cities to play in?
I like playing in Texas. The fans there were great. Good place to live. Milwaukee, I never really knew much about Milwaukee. Hadn't played there much, being in the American League most of my career. But when I got a chance to play there, the fans impressed me. I didn't realize, they packed that stadium out. It's a good place to live, and a lot of good people. Being in Toronto, I thought Toronto was awesome. Even though when I was there, a lot of if the Maple Leafs were playing, we didn't get a lot of fans. But when the fans came out, they're good fans. Great restaurants in Toronto. And I like playing on the turf. I know some people don't like playing on the turf. I liked it because you hit a ball on the ground, you get a chance to get it through the infield. And then, on cold, rainy days, whatever, they're going to put the dome. It's going to be domed, and you're not going to have to worry about the weather. And on nice days, they open it up. So I really enjoyed Toronto a lot.
Best teammates you played with?
So for me, Bobby Higginson in Detroit, he took me under his wing early in my career when I got to Detroit. He's one of my better friends. Michael Young, Vernon Wells. I enjoyed playing with Orlando Hudson, Carlos Delgado, John McDonald. Those are Bill Hasselman. I played with Bill Hasselman in Detroit, and then also we got traded to Texas together. So I keep in touch with him. Gabe Kapler was also in that trade, so I came up with Gabe. I think I came up to Detroit the year before he got there, and then we got traded together. So those are some guys that I still keep in touch with.
Best manager you played for?
Larry Parrish, hands down. I credit Larry to me getting to the big leagues. So you talk about you need some guys in your corner when you're in the minor leagues, and I know after I think it was my first year in the minor leagues, and I was told this by a coach that was in the meeting. When it came to my name, when they were talking about guys they should cut, I guess it was the minor league director said, "Yeah, we got to get rid of him. He's no good." And Larry Parrish went to bat for me and stood up and said, "No, let me work with this kid. He's a hard worker. He comes out early all the time. I can help him." And the guy was like adamant about, "No, we're not keeping him around." And luckily, the guy finally listened to Larry, and Larry I remember in the low minor leagues, rookie ball, A ball, instructional league, Larry just took a liking to me, and he was just nonstop every single day. He'd say, "Cat, be here at 8:00." And sometimes it was just me and him. Sometimes he had a couple other guys, but he taught me not only the mechanics of the swing, but also the mental part of the game, which was huge. And then he became my manager in, I believe it was 1999 in Detroit for a little while. But he taught me so much about the game. He taught me how to pick up pitchers tipping their pitches. He told me to keep a book. I kept a book on pitchers, and I think it helped me so much throughout my career, just being able to look back in that book and kind of have an idea of what the pitcher may throw me that night, or hey, this guy flares his glove on a changeup. So Larry Parrish was definitely the best manager I ever had.
And you bring up some interesting points there. And this is what I worry about our game now. There's no more Larry Parrishes out there. The guys that are coaching in the minor leagues, they don't build that trust up anymore. They don't have those relationships. I was just reading a story about Billy Martin. Billy Martin was undrafted. Well, it wasn't a draft, but he wasn't signed out of high school. He signs with an independent, the Oakland Oaks in the old Pacific Coast League. His manager is Casey Stengel. Casey Stengel comes to the Yankees, remembers all the things Billy Martin does, takes him to the Yankees. So people don't understand, when you're a young minor league player at the lowest level, you need that guy in your corner to sit there and say, you know what, I know the kid's hitting $180, but he's got a really good swing, Yep. And so we've lost those guys in our game that stick up for players because they've had the past history of, it's almost like you with us in Toronto. I always remembered what I liked about you as a hitter, and I never lost sight of that.
Yep.
We're losing those guys in baseball. That's alarming to me.
Yeah, that's bad, and I didn't realize that. And why do you say that, JP? Why are we losing those guys?
They're not. They won't hire ex-minor league players or ex-major league players. They're bringing all these guys with gurus. I'm sure you see it with the kids you deal with. I go to this guy to show me how to throw harder. I go to this guy to show me how to, and then you get the guy and you're like, you can't even make contact in the cage.
I know.
And they're selling out for so many things, which leads me into my next question. I know you've been a great guest, and it's always great talking with you. I don't want to keep you all day because I know you got other things to do with the team, but do you pay attention to the game much at the major league level today?
So not as much, and not as much as I would like to. I'll keep an eye on, the Yankees and Mets and see how they're doing. I'll be honest with you. I don't watch games. When the playoffs come, I'll watch the games. I'll check, the boxes and stuff like that. But I don't really watch the game. And it's funny because all growing up, I watched every single Yankee game. even when I was in the minor leagues and the major leagues, when I'd come home after playing a game, I wanted to put on the game and watch and learn from it and see, all right, there's this pitcher that, we're facing in a week from now and see what he was doing. Obviously, I don't have to do that now because I'm not playing, but I don't enjoy watching it as much. And it might be, like we said before, because the game's a lot different. There's all these strikeouts and it's not entertaining, but hopefully at some point I'll get back to watching the game like I used to, because I used to love it.
How'd you like the international level when you were involved with Team Italy?
Oh, it was great. The WBC was awesome. I think that's great for Major League Baseball. To watch these kids from Italy who are so passionate about baseball, but they just don't know the game like we do in the States. To watch them kind of soak it up. I remember, when me and Mike Piazza would be talking about something in the game, these guys would just come over one by one, like a bunch of ants just coming out of the woodwork, and just start listening to what we were saying because they wanted to learn. And I think it's great what they're doing with the WBC and I just loved playing and representing Italy.
And how, at this stage in your career, how do you like college coaching?
I love it. I mean, for me, the best thing about it is I can make an impact on these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, and I could teach them things that I learned at the big league level, or I learned in my late 20s, early 30s. And to watch it happen, like to watch that light bulb go off, it's very rewarding, seeing these guys, at first they look at you like, what are you talking about? And then when they sit on that 1-0 changeup that you tell them is coming and they hit it out of the ballpark or hit it hard, and then they come back and they go, oh, I get it. It's rewarding. So I really enjoy it.
Yeah, they come back and say, Coach, you really were paying attention on that. I remember, talking with you and Delgado and Vernon, and you guys were always talking about on second base. Do you want something? If I see something,
Yep.
And it's the part about the game that is so great is the conversations that the game allows. I had this in my first at bat. This guy's doing this to me on my second at bat. What do you see? What do you get? I know you're not involved with professional baseball, but not a lot of conversations like that anymore. We've kind of lost common sense, and that's a little disheartening to me because I don't know if it's going to be brought back. I don't know what your thoughts about that are, and if you want to share anything on that.
No, that's, I loved that. Like before the game, I would go talk to all the hitters, especially the left-handed hitters, and say, hey, what's your plan today? What are you thinking? Because I wanted to go up there confident. I wanted to go up there with a plan. I never took an at-bat and didn't have a plan. It's unfortunate that that's not going on anymore, because I learned so much from different hitters by just talking about the game and talking about at-bats. And when I'd come back after an at-bat, I enjoyed just, telling the other guys like, hey, this is what you want to look for in this situation. And it makes the individual better. It makes the team better. And it's unfortunate that doesn't go on, that much anymore. I make sure that on my team at Hoftra that it does go on. But yeah, that's I'll tell you, that's part of the thing that I miss the most at the major league level. I mean, playing the game and competing is one thing, but those conversations with the guys in the clubhouse and the dugout, I miss that.
Yeah. Well, Johnny, you got anything you want to throw at Frank?
Oh yeah, I'm just loving this conversation between the two of you, and obviously Frank, your Italian heritage, your Italian pride is so evident from not only participating in the World Baseball Classic for Team Italy, but also for your work and involvement with the Italian American Baseball Foundation. So a couple questions here. I'd like to know who do you think was the best Italian American baseball player, or a couple of them in history, and tell us more about your work with the foundation.
Good question. I'd probably say Joe DiMaggio. I don't know if that's.
Well, you're a Yankee guy too.
I'm a
You're a
Yankee
Yankee fan.
guy.
Yeah.
I'm a Yankee guy too.
He's your
But,
buddy Piazza's going to be mad at you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's gonna. Yeah, that's true. That's true. He's gonna be mad. I got to think about that. I've never really thought about that. That's a good question.
There's so many.
Yeah, there are so many. But as far as my involvement, Joe Quagliano, who's the head of the IABF, contacted me years ago and asked if I'd be interested in, being on the board to the IABF, and I said, of course. And I've taken trips to Italy with them and done a lot of clinics here and gone to a bunch of different events, and it's really awesome what they do. I mean, like I said, the Italian players, the Italian-born players are so passionate about the game, and going over there and teaching them the game, and putting on these different camps and clinics. It's pretty awesome. I mean, they help not only players in Italy, but also players here in the States. So it's a great organization, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
And also you run a foundation as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And I believe you also have a company which does supplements. So tell us a little bit about that life outside of baseball.
Right. So my 25-year-old daughter, when she was born with a vascular birthmark on her nose. And as first-time parents, my wife and I were concerned. The birthmark continued to get bigger and more red, and we brought her to the doctor, and they were like, "Oh yeah, don't worry about it; it'll go away." And that wasn't the answer we wanted to hear. So luckily, after I got traded from Detroit to Texas, there was a lady there that said, "I know the head of the VBF, which is the Vascular Birthmark Foundation," and said, "Why don't you talk to her about this?" And so we did. And she said, "Oh yeah, these birthmarks can be taken care of. Not a lot of doctors like to touch them because it's not easy, but they can do laser surgeries." And luckily enough, my daughter had 3 laser surgeries and 1 reconstructive surgery. And after she got those, you couldn't even tell that she had any deformation or any birthmark there. So I felt I was very happy that we met this lady, and I felt like, I wanted to help out. So we formed the Frank Catalanotto Foundation, which helps support the Vascular Birthmark Foundation. And we've, raised a bunch of money with different golf outings and different events for them. So we're happy to support that. What was the other thing you asked?
On the sports supplements?
Yeah. So after I retired, a friend of mine that I knew in Detroit asked me if I would be interested in starting a sports supplement company. And the name of the company is Proven 4. And so I did. She wanted me to help out with getting the players, trying to get the foot in the door in Major League Baseball. And that's what I was able to do. I was able to kind of help get the products, an energy formula, a recovery formula. And at the time it was vitamins. We don't do vitamins anymore, but I was able to help talk to some of the strength and conditioning guys at the different teams. And the product is all throughout Major League Baseball now in the clubhouses. So that's going very well. I'm happy to be involved. That kind of keeps me in the game at the Major League level a little bit, because I go to these different conventions during the winter meetings and stuff. So I can see some of the guys and be around.
Well, I appreciate that. From one Long Islander to another, I really appreciate your time here today. And JP, take it from here.
Well, Frank, I can't thank you enough. I appreciate you coming on. Always stand-up guy, and forget about as good a baseball player he is. He's twice that as a person. Great family, one of my favorites, and wish you the best at Hofstra, and I'll be following you, and hopefully we'll have you back on at some point.
All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
All
Frank.
right.
A great batter up with your paisan, Frankie. It was really good.
Good guy. Good guy.
Well, we look forward to more of these batter ups, and it was a pleasure to have Frank on the show today. And now it's time to Ask JP, where you get to submit your questions to JP. Submit your questions. Go to the X or Instagram account. It's at Ricciardi JP on both of those platforms. Put your question in, and we'll get to it on the next episode. But today, we have a question from Seth Kersner from X. And he asked JP, how do you remember the 2003 Blue Jays season, your second as GM, from Halladay Cy Young Award, drafting Aaron Hill, 86 wins for the season, the SARS virus? There was a lot going on.
Yeah, well, SARS was something, none of us had ever heard of. And it actually was so prevalent that Major League Baseball sent up people to kind of walk us through what SARS was all about, and it was kind of alarming because it was an infectious, I believe, disease from the lungs, but it was new to everybody, kind of like the pandemic. We never heard about it, and it was so everybody was a little shaky, and I had 2 young kids, and we were very concerned about that, but we had really good medical people in Toronto, and they kept us on top of everything. And I think they were able to kind of keep it contained and keep it away from the club, which was great. So that was a little scary, but it was a great year. It was a really good year. And I think, I don't want to sound like a naysayer, but man, we really should have won 90 games that year. We blew a lot of games late in the season that I thought kept us from winning 90 games. But Carlos Tosca took over. He did a great job. He managed the club well. A couple of tough breaks didn't get us to the 90 wins, which would have put us probably in a contention for a wild card, although today it would have been a wild card team. But Halladay was money, man, every 5th day. It was such a pleasure to watch. He was absolutely like watching an artist. You knew you were going to get 7, 8 innings. It almost became you expected it, which you should never do in professional sports because that's how automatic and good Doc was. So it was a really good year in a lot of ways, and we were really trying to build on something and point, the needle in the right direction. And we did it on a $50 million payroll. We had sliced payroll the year before. We had no money. That's the first year, I believe, we brought Catalanotto in, and he had a big year for us. We made some minor things here and there, but a lot of good things, and we're pointing in the right direction. And just to show you, in 2003, a lot of things went right. And in 2004, everything went wrong because we got hit with the injury bug from day one, and we could never put our team on the field. So you got to enjoy a good season based on the fact that everything went in a good way for us. But you really appreciated the fact that, man, it's pretty fragile. But it was a great year in a lot of ways.
Excellent. Thank you, Seth, for that question. And then, we'll answer some more of your questions right here next week. And JP, that's going to wrap it up for this week's Brushback. For you baseball podcast fans and those Met fans listening or watching the show, check out the other show I co-host with the former Met skipper Terry Collins. Terry Collins Show is available wherever you get or listen to your favorite podcast. This week's guest is going to be Tom Hallion, asking the jackpot guy himself. So that should be fun. And we will be back here next week with the Brushback with JP Ricciardi. So until then, this is John Arezzi for JP. Have a great week, everyone.